All right. Well, I am so happy to finally be able to welcome Darci Hawxhurst, the creator of the Vibrant Woman program. And she has very kindly agreed to talk with us today about the effects of stress on the body and the adrenals. And this is something that you know a lot about, Darci. So why don't you tell everyone why you know so much about this?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for your grace under pressure. A little behind the scenes. We just had about, I don't even want to say how long. We had some tech issues. We were trying to go live and it wasn't doing what we expected it to do. And Holly had to really kind of juggle and learn on the fly. And moments like that, right? Like where there's this social expectation, personal expectation, things don't happen the way you want them to.
Yes.
And it's fascinating because I remember being the person who like would have melted down about something like that. So I just want to lift up for a minute. Like we're kind of living examples of pretty balanced nervous systems. Not that we don't all have our challenges, right? But Holly and I are laughing through this really stupid thing that happened because Facebook is a jerk sometimes. Yeah, but we're not going to let it like wreck us today. No. But also recognizing like those moments of shallow breathing or what the signs are. And that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
Because when I say the person I used to be, so yes, I'm Darci. I'm the creator of the Vibrant Woman course and community. And it is based on my own personal experience, really the tools that I used on the journey that I've made back from total burnout. And I just want to tell a little bit of that story so folks can get a sense of what I'm talking about. If you meet me today and you think, wow, she's pretty energetic and I'm not caffeinated, so it's a little, if you just met me recently, it might be a little bit hard to imagine really how far down I had let myself go into burnout. I'll just tell a little bit of this story. I was a very young single mother. My daughter was born. We almost lost her at 12 days old to an infection of bacterial meningitis. So there was, that was a very traumatizing event, right? And so that was really the start of my journey down into stress because, the sleepless nights under hotel, I wish it was a hotel, hospital lighting. I was sent home with this 2-week-old baby finally with a long list of disability labels and a big bottle of phenobarbital. And I write more about that over on my blog. So I'm happy to share that link and send folks over to my website to read that story. I know that connects with a lot of mothers who have special needs children. Mm-hmm. So, there was that setup. And so there I was parenting this very special needs child who was given this terrible prognosis that just didn't sit well with me. So I embarked on a journey of learning and healing and education. And I spent the better part of a couple decades doing an intense rehabilitation program to help my daughter outgrow those disabilities instead of learn to live with them. Okay, so you can imagine like where my self-care came and all of that story.
As a single mom, also paying the bills, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I look back sometimes and I think, I don't know how I did it. I really don't know. I was on autopilot. I was on stress pilot.
Yeah.
And, it really affected and it impacted my relationship with my daughter for better or worse. Mm-hmm. And it definitely impacted, some other areas of my life. But to boil it down, there was this moment where literally I was in the bleachers at a swim meet. My daughter was supposed to be swimming. She was in trouble with the coach again. She had sensory issues and didn't hear the gun, whatever, and all the the coach yelling at her, all the parents turned to look at me. And it was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I literally felt this pop inside of me. And it took me a long time to understand that was literally the night I say my adrenals blew.
Yeah.
It wasn't long after that, then that I was covered head to toe with a painful, itchy rash. My thyroid had come down. You pull on one end of that HPA, axis, and you're going to send the whole thing tumbling. So my adrenals came down, my thyroid came down, my digestion was off. I ended up with food allergies. I was allergic to everything. I was allergic to carrots. I was allergic to carrots, you know? So was needless to say, couldn't sleep. Hormones were a mess, you know, talk about hair falling out and weight gain and aging, you know, the inflammatory cycle went crazy. So I was a hot mess. I was exhausted, couldn't get out of bed. And what kind of parent do you think I was then too?
Yeah, no kidding.
So that was really, again, I think some of us have to hit bottom before we can see clearly what it is. And what it is that my body could not take any more stress, right? So stress comes in so many forms. And that's one of the reasons I do this work, Holly, is because a lot of us think about stress in terms of mental or emotional stress. And of course, that's one form.
Right.
But in terms of the adrenal glands, we're going to talk about the actual body and the physiological organ that deals with stress. The adrenals don't really care if it's mental, emotional,
Physical.
chemical, physical, right? And so what I had to learn in order to heal, and I did heal. I mean, actually, the path back goes past wellness. It keeps going. If you stay on that path, it goes like all the way over to thriving. You know, I'm in the best shape of my life. I had no idea that thriving like this was possible. And so I had to have that experience for myself, but I don't recommend it. And, you know, part of the work that I do when I created this Vibrant Woman program was to make sure that other women don't have to go that far down.
Right.
And that they begin to recognize, you know, hindsight's 2020. I look back and I was like, oh, those were the warning signs. Oh, that's what that feels like. Oh, you know, at any place on that downward spiral, I probably could have stopped and made some adjustments and not had to have such a bad experience, right?
Well, I was
so that's the point. Our bodies are talking to us. All of those symptoms were messages from my body saying, this is what I am going to need.
Right.
And I ignored it, pushed through. Part of that is the toxic culture around mothering. Part of it's the toxic hustle culture of work and success and striving.
Always.
All of it was self-imposed, actually.
Right. Right. Always being on, always being tuned into whatever your phone, your media sources, your available by text, it's like we never get to shut down if we allow that kind of thing to rule our lives. There were a couple of other symptoms that I had when I had adrenal issues that you didn't mention, that I just want to mention in case people experience these too. I had a lot of brain fog. Like I could not think my way out of a grocery list. I mean, seriously, I am an organized person that is good at doing things like planning, for a week's worth of groceries. I could not make a grocery list. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I had a lot of issues with, you said that you developed allergy issues. Well, I developed leaky gut. I got stomach issues, and I got, then I had shoulder inflammation. I couldn't sleep. My stomach was a mess, and I now am gluten intolerant and a whole bunch of other things as a result, I think, of that kind of my body shutting down that far. And so it's like, there are so many warning signs that we can miss because we're so busy keeping all the balls in the air.
Yeah.
So,
well, as women, number one, we're culturalized to put everybody else's needs before our own, right? And to be pleasing to others rather than please ourselves. So we start off, it's normal to ignore our own needs and our own inner messaging. So I think we got to change that, right?
Right.
And then as mothers too, like mothers, we in a villageless society, right. Mothers have all that pressure. But what's fascinating about what you said is that whole leaky gut thing, right? So because here's the other thing, we miss the signals because a lot of people have them. There are a lot of these signs of stress that is actually your body telling you that it's not okay, right? That's normalized because everybody has them. And because there's a quick pill or, like a quick fix for that symptom, as opposed to getting down to the root cause.
What are the causes of it so you can stop having the problem? Don't just cover it up with pill, right?
Yeah, or any other sort of symptomatic approach. I turned out to be celiac. I mean, I'm gluten intolerant as well. I don't even see that as a problem with my body. I don't see it as a disease. I see it as messaging from my body about what it considers food and what it doesn't.
Right.
And when I completely remove those grains and the gluten grains and all of that, for a lot of people too, it's not just specific allergenic foods. It's the total carb load.
Right.
We are carbed up, we're sugared up, and all of that puts a lot of stress, both on the gut lining, but on our adrenal glands, because their job is to help like maintain that, like the diurnal rhythms of our energy.
Right.
And when they're fatigued, because they're trying to, they're trying to make up for all of the bad things that we're doing to our body. So one of the hardest, I think, wake up call for me was recognizing actually that this wasn't something that my body had failed at. It wasn't something wrong with me.
Yeah.
It was me failing my body. I was doing this to myself.
Because you weren't listening to your body.
I wasn't listening. I didn't know that the bloating meant that my body was trying to digest something it didn't want. I didn't know that the hormone imbalance was, related to my sleep patterns or lack of sleep patterns, because I was up all night trying to make up for the things that I didn't do during the day because so there's just so much going on in our modern world that normalizes stress. And I think that's why it's so important to talk about this and break it down. What's your body saying? Where is it uncomfortable? And what is that really? Don't just numb out. Don't just cover that up. But listen and then make those adjustments, right?
Right. So when you recognize that your body is stressed out, a lot of people just say, okay, well, I'm going to go to the doctor. But I'm hearing you say that's not the only fix. I mean, that's certainly an option, and I'm not discouraging anyone from going to see their doctor. You should see your doctor if you are having any of those issues. And my doctor is what helped me figure out what was going on, that I had leaky gut and that I needed to make some major changes in how I was managing my health. But what else can we do to help our bodies deal with this constant bombardment of stress that we have in our world?
I love this question. I've got a couple of suggestions, and then I know you have some too. So here's what I would say. And number one, I would say the best way to deal with stress is to prevent it. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of us, that means we got to go a little counterculture. So you're going to put your phone on do not disturb and leave it outside of your bedroom. You're going to implement some good sleep hygiene. You're going to prioritize nutrition and movement in your life. And nutrition really is something we have to look at, because starting your day with a donut and coffee is very normal in the culture. And that is a huge source of stress for your body. You're not providing any nutrients. Your adrenal glands, by the way, need tons of B vitamins. They need their C vitamins. They need tons of phytonutrients that don't even have names yet, that come from the minerals in the soil where your food was grown. If you're opening a box, you're not getting any of that.
Right.
So we have to address nutrition. Movement is another one. Joyful movement outdoors. Humans evolved doing that, and the last few decades we've gotten way off track. We talk about exercise. You and I talked about it before we were recording, and exercise typically is one. And I see memes like all over social media. You see memes that say, exercise is the most underrated antidepressant or whatever. And that's true to a certain extent. What I teach in my program is that we have to make sure that we're not exercising at too high an intensity,
right,
which will actually cause stress.
Right.
And a lot of us want to do that, though. Women especially. We sit all day. And then we're socialized to want to be smaller, to be sexy and loved. So we get on a treadmill and we try to pack it all into 1 hour.
Doing something we hate.
Yeah, ramping up that heart rate and causing more stress. So, exercise is important at the right intensity.
Right. Well, and
these are my big ones. And then, I know you've got a whole list there to help us with stress.
Well, one thing I wanted to say about exercise that I think it's really important for people to understand is that exercise is one of the few ways that our body can burn off the stress hormone cortisol. And if we aren't getting 20 to 30 minutes of heart pumping, something that makes us sweat, we're not, as we age especially, and our hormones change, we're not able to get rid of that cortisol. And then it causes problems because it is just like free floating and, buildup. And I think that your pop is really an interesting story. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
But fascinating, right? That your body got to that point where it had to say, listen, you are going to pay attention to me or else, right?
Yeah. I'm not doing this anymore. It said basically, I didn't come for this. Yeah.
So a couple of other things besides diet and exercise, and I think I'm with you, those building blocks, sleep, diet, and exercise, I talk about that all the time because I think those are the important building blocks for anything related to our health. But there's some other, I think, really helpful things that we can do to lower our stress every day. And one of them that I think is simple and fun is laugh. Like laughter is important, right? Yeah. And it doesn't matter really, like your body doesn't know the difference between a conversation that makes you laugh and you watching cat videos. I mean, you're changing your brain chemistry with laughter, regardless of how you get there. So I think that's an important one to utilize. Another one is like staying in the moment, doing one thing at a time. Like we get so many kudos especially as women for doing multiple things at once. And really what we need to do is slow our brains down and just be present. So when you are petting your dog, you pet the dog, and you're not doing that while you're creating a grocery list and having a conversation on the phone with your friend. I mean, it's like just one thing at a time, being mindful. Go outside, go for a walk, and have it be just to enjoy being outside in the sun or listening to the birds or whatever that is, right? Another one that I think that I find fascinating, and this again is about brain chemistry, is about touch, the importance of physical touch. And, some of us have partners and or people that we get hugs and touch from regularly. But even if you don't get that, if you can't, you can go for a massage, you can ask a friend for a hug, or you can touch yourself. And your body actually does not know the difference between you putting a hand on your heart and holding yourself and somebody that you love doing the same.
That's a beautiful point. I absolutely love that point. I think especially as some of us are healing from the negative effects of the isolation of the pandemic.
Yes.
I had to pull those tools out of my toolbox during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Hugging your dog works. It's that oxytocin, right?
Right.
It literally binds to the cortisol and will wash it out of your bloodstream. Yeah, self-touch, self-massage, self-pleasure, all of that is really important. And especially for women, I think normalizing that, normalizing it, making it okay and okay to ask for what you want.
Absolutely. And you probably have to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
You're not expecting somebody to know that you need that or want that.
Yeah. I really need a hug. And post-pandemic and people without masks on, I always start with, do you hug? Can I get one?
Yeah. That's a good strategy. Another thing that I find fascinating, again, about calming the nervous system is the impact of stretching. Like even stretching our bodies and elongating our muscles slows our or increases our calming mechanisms in our brain. It slows down our sympathetic nervous system. And I think, that parasympathetic response is such an important thing to know how to impact. And there's lots of physical tools for that, like the long exhale. And we talked a little bit about breathing. I teach my clients a lot 4-7-8 breathing. And this is from Dr. Andrew Weil. He says, breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. And you do it 3 times. And the reason for that is that the exhale actually is a vagal break. It slows your heart rate. And you said something really interesting that I hadn't heard before about that. the other impact, and I'll let you share.
Yeah. So when we're exhaling, think about what the breath cycle is doing. It's bringing in fresh oxygen that all of our cells actually need to do their work.
Yeah.
And the cells that we're trying to, so a lot of my work is based on building what we call a healthy aerobic system. And that simply means in the presence of oxygen, the cells require oxygen for their work. So we're bringing in fresh oxygen. We have to breathe out the byproducts of that exchange, which is CO2.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of us, if we're shallow breathing, it's detrimental in two ways. We're not bringing in the oxygen. We're not expanding our lung capacity and bringing in the volume that we need, but we're not exhaling all of our CO2.
Right.
So when we keep that in, it actually will elevate our heart rate too, which has, it has really negative effects on physical training. Folks that are, trying to get fit and train, they'll end up with too high a heart rate, which impacts the workout intensity, which impacts further stress.
Right.
So the deep, long, full exhale, it does wonders.
Really squeezing that diaphragm muscle. And when you do squeeze your diaphragm muscle on that exhale, you actually are, like I said, slowing your heart rate. And you are telling your brain, I'm not in danger right now because I have low heart rate. I'm not running from a tiger. I don't need to survive right now. I can relax. It's fascinating. Our bodies are so complicated and fascinating. I want to share one other quick one before we wrap things up. That I learned that I thought was fascinating because it's so simple to do, and it'll take you, a minute or so to do this exercise. What you do is you take your right hand and you put it on the top of your head and you tip your head to the right side and you look up with your eyes to the left for 30 seconds. And then you stretch it out, move around, whatever you need to do. And you do it to the other side, looking up to the opposite side for 30 seconds. And that is a brain calming tip or technique that gets your nervous system settled and relaxed. Fascinating, right? How simple is that?
Yeah, and you can do it. Yeah. From wherever you are.
So
I think that's a part of it too. We get very hung up with our on this mental momentum, right? We get very hung up there. And it's important to remind ourselves to come back into our bodies. I think, if there were a theme under all of these tools that we're talking about and all of the symptoms, the symptoms that we're ignoring are in our body. So we have to remember we're living in a physical body. And here's what I love to say. Bodies never lie. They never lie. When they're tired, they need rest. When they're hungry, they need nutritious food. When they're energetic, they need to move. Like they never lie. So we can trust what our body's asking for.
And learning to listen to your body really is a practice. I know when I was going through my divorce and it felt like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to make myself happy. I didn't know how to listen at all. And just even beginning little tiny things like, noticing that when the sun comes up over the field as I'm driving to work, it makes me happy. Like that beauty was something that I so appreciated in my life. And I'd kind of just like tuned it all out because I was just in survival mode or just in, getting my life together and moving forward and not paying attention to really what do I need and what makes me happy, what brings me joy, what, makes me a whole person. Yeah, I think I love the information about the adrenal piece, adding that to what I know about the brain and the sympathetic nervous system. It's fascinating. We are complicated.
We are. Yeah, the adrenals, I'll just leave you with this too. Like the adrenals, they're implicated in so many different functions of the body too. They're on the front line of our immunity, which is why if you have adrenal problems, you're going to end up with allergies, more colds, more illness. And again, that's the body trying to say, slow down. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's construction next door. And sorry. I was like, oh my gosh, that was really loud. Yeah.
No, you're good. But, so the adrenals, they play a role in women's hormone balance.
Yeah.
They're playing a role in our natural diurnal rhythms. People who wake up at 3 a.m. and can't get back to sleep. A lot of people will say, oh, that's because I needed to use the bathroom. It's because you've got cortisol now.
Yep.
Your adrenals are misfiring. So, and taking care of our physical body, one of the first things to heal then will be the adrenal glands. So, they're really there. They're real.
And they tell you that they're there.
Yeah, they do. They're trying. And I think that's one of the points that, I would love to leave people with is, because I hear this from people too, like, well, how do you listen? I mean, it does take time. It's like any relationship, when you invest time and energy into it, you become more intimate. And that's what I'm seeking with my own body. And it does get better with practice.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a good message to leave us all with. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your patience with my tech issues and for dealing with my little stress attack while we dealt with that. And
no, you did fine. We laughed through it. We did well. Thank you, Holly.
Life is good. All right. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.